They're holding some strong.
Are we expecting
There's
them?
been a lot of.
Do we know who's gonna be getting it tomorrow?
Thank you, Sid. Hello, everybody. Wanted to just give everybody an update. It looks like the weather may have some folks delayed, so we are waiting a quorum. We will pause the meeting until we end up going live. So please stay with us. Thank you.
Well, and that's, I think that
This week.
they were open to.
Live or is it memorized?
Whoa,
Some people-
wow, we're dating ourselves now, aren't we?
All right, good morning, all. Thank you all that were able to make it this morning. And this, weather is keeping some folks away, it looks like, but looks like we do have folks here. We can conduct the business of the people. So I do call to order this Wednesday, October 9th meeting of the CVTA Finance Committee meeting. If you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Ms. Scott, would you certify the form?
Yes, sir. Chesterfield County, Mr. Carroll.
Here, thank you.
Henrico County, Mr. Nelson.
Here.
Goochland County, Chair Spoonhour.
Here.
Newcastle County, Mr. Moyer.
Here.
City of Richmond, Ms. Nye. Here. Commonwealth Transportation Board, Mr. Davis.
Here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Thank you all for being here this morning. We'll lead into, we don't really, do we have anybody that has requested to participate remotely?
We do not, and we have no one on the who has joined on the Zoom. That's a member.
All right. All right, board, do we have any considerations and amendments to the meeting agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Mr. President.
I would like to request that item B2, titled Wayfinding Implementation Standard Project Agreements. We have it listed as action requested today, but it still needs to be baked a little bit more. So I would request that shift to discussion only.
Haven't found your way yet. All right.
Give you $1,500,000.
Okay, any other additions, subtractions, deletions, changes? All right. All right, good with that?
Mr. Chair, motion to approve the amended agenda.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, hopefully you've had a chance to look at the meeting minutes for our October 9th meeting. Can I get a motion to approve or any changes that this committee is recognized?
Motion approved.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Second. Thank you, Reverend Nelson. Have a motion to second, any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now we'll move into our public comment period. Is there anyone in the room that would like to address the committee? Do we have any emails or anything online?
We do not. We've received no requests.
All right, great. So moving to my report, I'll keep this relatively short. Just want to thank everybody. This is our last meeting of the Finance Committee of the year, and we will not be meeting in January due to scheduling conflicts. So we'll pull together again in February. Just very much appreciate this opportunity to serve on this board, on this committee, and appreciate working with everybody. I hope everybody has a wonderful, blessed holiday and Merry Christmas. All right, Jeff.
Actually, I don't have a report on the 6.
Okay. All right, CVTA activities report, item 7, moving right along. Mr. Parsons, do you have some information regarding the financial activities and investment reports?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. On page 7 is the tax collections and allocations report, the green table for July tax activity through reported October 31st, 24th. As you recall, we are on a 3-month lag in this tax reporting. So again, continuous good performance in terms of both sales and use tax and the local fuels tax. Those funds continue to grow on a steady basis as we have been reporting month over month for the past since the organization was started. Before I move to the investment reports, I wanted to point your attention to a handout that I put in everyone's place with a pie chart on it. This is an update on through the end of November on our operating expenses as well for the CVTA. Our 4 major categories: personnel, professional services, technology, communications, and administration, are listed there with our going left to right, our FY 25 budget numbers, year-to-date actual, and then remaining, and then any specific notes on those categories and what is contained therein. I will note that we're doing fine and performing as expected in terms of budget spend. You will see that the technology and communications category is high at 75% spent, about halfway through the fiscal year, but that is because we are in the final stages of wrapping up the website update, and that was the major expense for that category for this year. The other interesting item which we're tracking is at the bottom of the page in terms of Plan RVA staff time. So as you recall, our MOA with Plan RVA is to utilize the expertise of Plan RVA staff like Mr. Bushing and others. So this is the staff time trend over the fiscal year in terms of hours spent by Plan RVA staff to support the activities of the CVTA. The increase through October and November, I think, is in large part to the work that's been done with the website as well as the annual report, which was shared at the joint annual meeting last week. I expect that between probably December and the end of June, we will see a drop in staff time from the November numbers, but we'll slowly be ramping up as we get towards the middle of the summer for our next round of regional funding. That application window is scheduled to open midsummer, so we'll be using a lot more Plan RVA staff time to prepare for that and make sure that everything is set to receive those new applications. Moving back to the agenda packet, page 8 is the monthly investment report.
I have a question.
Oh, sure.
Any questions on the administrative operating expenses? I just had a quick one. So the increase in staff time, would that be in addition to any third-party support that we had? So was the website and annual report done fully in-house by Plan RVA, or do we have third parties assisting as well?
That's a great question, Mr. Chair. The expenses on the top of the page were contracted services by a third party to do the nuts and bolts of the back end website.
Okay.
There was also staff time involved that was on kind of the front end and, establishing the accounts and working through the contract, the content for the website. So it's a combination, but.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, under administrative, we're looking at only 6% of the budget used, so I'm assuming we're saving it up for later on in the year.
Yes, sir. There's actually some travel and training that is scheduled
Okay,
at the request of the chair.
because we put almost $90,000 in there, and right now we've used 5,400. So,
Yes, sir.
but we have anticipation of a need coming in the future in the second half.
We did.
Okay, very good.
Great. Any other questions? Thanks. Great question. All right, Mr. President.
Okay, so the page 8 is the October 2024 investment report. Again, sharing good news is one of my favorite things. So looking at the bottom of the page, the cumulative interest earnings in FY 25 compared to previous fiscal years is great news. We are performing very well in short-term yields. Those have remained high to combat inflation. We continue to monitor, as noted in the notes there, the reduction of rates by the Fed in the past few months and how that may impact our short-term investments. So we'll continue to work with the fiscal agent to inform this committee on any recommendations and changes to reinvesting some of those short-term funds and how that may impact the bottom line for the organization. I think that's it, Mr. Chair, in terms of the update. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. President? Well done. Thank you. All right, now we'll turn it over to Ms. Smith for our tax activities report.
How are you today? Good
How
to
are
see
you?
you. Good. So the tax primary focus continues to be revisions to the regional framework document. Last on our list is to evaluate the safety measure for scoring transit projects. And the TAC gave us some suggestions to consider. And a subcommittee has met to discuss those in more detail. The subcommittee narrowed down the options, briefed TAC on Monday, and will meet again to finalize a recommendation to the TAC in January. We also discussed the $5 million in interest earnings that was set aside for regional projects. Staff presented the list of existing regional projects that have balances, and then projects that were submitted for regional funding that didn't make the cut. The group felt it would be good to wait until the Smart Scale draft funding scenario is available in January before making any recommendations. So we're going to keep that on our agenda and revisit it. Staff presented the draft schedule for the next round of CVTA regional projects, which shows applications being accepted in July. So you may want to get with your staff and figure out what you might want to submit. We also reviewed the draft project agreement for the Fall Line Trail wayfinding, and the Fall Line Trail Working Group met last week to discuss options for getting the remaining sections of trail funded and for ensuring there's a good fund source for future maintenance of the trail. That group, instead of meeting monthly, is going to start meeting every other month. And that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Questions for Pat? Just one question, Smith. You said that there was a group of projects that didn't make the cut. Has that, and if this has already been submitted to us, I apologize, but does this board, does the full committee get to see those projects that aren't going to be considered?
That was last round. So last round, when regional projects were submitted for funding, those projects that didn't make it last round were included in the review.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood.
Yeah,
So,
sorry, I
great.
didn't-
No, that's not my fault. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, moving on to, thank you very much. Thank you for all your work. All right, Ms. Parsons, I think you're gonna talk about the reserve strategy.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is item B1 under other business, the working capital reserve strategy. There's a staff report on page 10, which outlines kind of where we are. Ms. Smith noted the 5.05 million that was set aside from the interest reserve or the interest earnings to fund regional projects. That is one of the three different types of funding that's available. So as you recall, the CVTA set aside, split the interest earnings from FY24, approximately 11.6 million, into three different groups. One was a 1.5 million to fund wayfinding implementation for the Fall Line Trail. The second group was 5.05 million to initially fund the working capital reserve, which gives us a base, a foundation to build upon. And then the third was to allocate 5.85 million to fund regional projects to be determined, and that's what TAC is working through right now. A recommendation on which regional projects would be best to fund with that amount of money. So with the 5.85 million of initial funding, the authority will need to allocate an additional 12.95 million to fully fund the working capital reserve. It will take roughly 15 months to fully fund the working capital reserve if the authority directs 100% of its monthly investment from regional funds to the working capital reserve. The working capital reserve requirement will be reevaluated by June 30th, 2025, which is set forth in our financial policies. And at that point, staff and PFM, our advisors, will also reevaluate the funding status of the working capital reserve. It was requested that I check back with our auditor, PB Mayers, to see if they have any concerns about the recommendations that the CVTA has made in funding the working capital reserve. And I received immediate feedback from Mr. Garber that there are no issues with this approach, and he does not see any future audit concerns if we move forward with this process. So, with that being said, the three different types of distributions of the funds, we need a strategy. We need to figure out how staff can work and move forward with making this actually happen. So this staff report recommends a framework for completing the development of the working capital reserve and maintaining its balance. The authority delegates to the finance committee the ability to provide direction to the executive director on the oversight of the working capital reserve, and may modify or adjust the funding strategy as needed with regular reports to the finance committee and full board included in monthly financial reports. So that is the first action, monthly updates included in the financial reports. And then monthly, the executive director shall work with the CVTA fiscal agent, in this case Chesterfield County, to include additional data points in the financial report and investment report outlining the current status of the monthly regional investment earning contribution, and B, a new line item in the financial report showing the working capital reserve as a unique funding recipient, and C, the overall impact of the monthly investment to the bottom line of the working capital reserve. So we don't need, essentially, we won't need to wait until June for a check-in. You'll be able to see in our monthly reporting if we're performing as expected with filling in the working capital reserve. And then annually, this is the annual reporting. By June 30th of each year, staff will provide an update on the success of the working capital reserve funding strategy and any recommendations necessary to ensure its long-term impact. I have discussed this before bringing it to you with our fiscal agent, and they are on board with adding these additional reporting points. They did want to make sure that we all understood that the working capital reserve will not be pulled out of the overall fund. It will be noted as the working capital reserve, but in terms of keeping all of our funds fluid and being able to be invested, it did not make sense to separate that funding in two different pots, so to speak. And I think that I can certainly bring back more information if there are questions on that.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Any questions from Mr. Parsons? Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir.
I think it's worthy to make sure that we note, and I don't know who's gonna watch this video, but hopefully someone does, but they need to understand that because the money's left in the investment pool, it's subject to not just going up, but it's also subject to going down. And so the importance of having a monthly report and a strategy for this is so that we can take a look at these investments, and if we need to change, because there's a change in direction in one of the investments that we have, in order to minimize the loss, we need it'll help us to have these monthly reports to keep track of this, to work with the fiscal agent. But as long as the money remains in the investment pot, it's still at risk, which means, we could see fluctuation in the future on how much money is actually established in the reserve because of that. And I think it's worthy to make sure we mention that in case someone asks questions later. There's a full understanding of the finance committee of what this means, and the full understanding from the full CVTA. With that, if this requires a motion, I make a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, appreciate the comments and the motion.
Just what, Mr. Chairman?
Can we get a second before discussion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Markle. Discussion.
And to go along with what Mr. Carroll mentioned was, once we obtain that reserve amount, it's gonna have to be good to have a monthly report to see how it's going after that. Because if it does drop off, we need to bump up or and do something at that time. But the monthly report is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
One last question, Mr. Chair, and that is that when we achieve whatever time frame that may be, the standard, the number we're looking for in the capital reserve, then the investment pool money will continue to accrue, would not be definitely designated for this. It would then become an opportunity to utilize those funds for transportation projects in the future. And I think it's good to clarify to the community that what should happen in the future once we attain the goal that we're looking for.
Okay. So piggybacking, you took one of my questions away, so thank you. I don't have to ask it. But no, I appreciate great minds. So my question becomes, so we say that it's 3 months of budgeted annual CVTA funds. My question is twofold. Number one, say that number, we're allocating this for a certain time frame for a certain dollar amount, correct now. But then that could be very different in, what is it, 2027? Or 20, I'm sorry. When is that expected? Whenever this is expected to be paid out. So the question is, what is considered budgeted annual regional funds? Let's say, for example, this authority decides to bond $100 million. And we take a draw of $50 million. Are they funds, and does that need to be counted into this reserve? Or is it to be defined at a later date?
I think that is probably to be defined at a later date, Mr. Chair, but remember, as we approach the issuance of bonds, we're looking at two different sources of funds. So
Okay.
we will still have the fuels revenue that would drive PAYGO expenses. That would absolutely be included in this number. I think that the question would be, does the entire package get included? So.
Or is there another, we have,
Yes.
I'm sure we'll have reserves for, how we determine, but for
Debt service.
whatever our debt service is gonna be, and maybe that's not included, so we'll just have to prepare for this as we go.
Sure.
All right, any other questions?
The last thing, Mr. Chair, is that, once we do get the fund balance established where we need it, it'll remain in the investment pool, and if things remain the way that we hope they do, that should continue to increase over time based on investment.
Good Lord, willing, creek don't rise.
That's right.
All right, any other discussion? All right, we've got a proper motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, take this to the full committee. Great, good work, y'all. Moving right along. Wayfinding implementation. This one has, as a reminder, has changed from action required to informational.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Page 12 is where this item starts. And this was a discussion item on Monday with the Technical Advisory Committee. I think overall, it was a very positive discussion, and the TAC identified a couple outliers that still need to be investigated. That's part of the reason why I've requested to make this discussion only. Essentially, this is a direct connection to our last discussion about the working capital reserve and the set aside of the 1.5 million to fund wayfinding implementation. We now need to identify the mechanism and how that 1.5 million can be distributed to the jurisdictions that are implementing the fall line. And so we have a structure in place through the standard project agreement at the locality level to reimburse for costs related to project expenses. And in discussing this with Mr. Gregory, the standard project agreement is the I think the likely destination for distribution of these funds as well. With that being said, the mechanism and the way that those standard project agreements are organized is still to be determined. Right now, we have a standard project agreement for individual sections of the fall line. Let's say Henrico County has 4 or 5 at least moving at one time. That would be somewhat of a burden for the authority to go back and amend every standard project agreement to include additional funds for wayfinding. So part of the discussion is about establishing a locality-wide standard project agreement for fall line implementation that could encompass all costs for the city of Richmond that relates to fall line wayfinding, whether that's Bryan Park or Commerce Road. So I think that that is, I think, made a lot of sense and resonated with the TAC. The structure for how those spas are developed needs to be determined. We have included a very rough copy that was discussed with the TAC, and you see lots of highlights in there on page 13. This is essentially the existing structure for the standard project agreement. I think one of the points that was raised by the TAC on Monday was that staff had assumed that VDOT would be administering some of these projects, but that is not actually the case, and VDOT is not interested in administering fall line implementation, wayfinding signage. So this would be a locality agreement only. And I think we still need to do some work on understanding how the southern section of the fall line is going to be covered, because there are CVTA has a vested interest in the southern end of the fall line, but there are some jurisdictions, some localities where they are not included in the CVTA boundaries. So we want to make sure that we're creative in how we organize agreements so that the entire fall line and the benefits therein can be experienced by the CVTA. And I think there are obviously logical reasons why we want the entire trail to be completed for the benefit of our region. But we just need to make sure that we are covered on a legal basis to make that happen with the funding that's been set aside. So I think that kind of wraps things up. I don't know if Mr. Gregory wants to add anything else, or Ms. Smith. We still have some discussion to take place, and eventually we will be bringing this back with a TAC recommendation and would hope for a finance recommendation as well to get that to the full authority.
Mr. Chair. I'm assuming you're talking about Colonial Heights and Petersburg, the sections of the fall line trail that are south of Chesterfield County. My question is, have we had and should we have conversations with the Tri-City TPO and the Creator PDC in which that section of the fall line trail falls into their section? I would tell you that they don't have legal counsel at the table at their meetings. I'm at their meetings, they don't have legal counsel. And I think it would be beneficiary for us to at some point either go have someone like yourself come to one of their meetings and give a presentation on all of this so they understand what's going on. Or at least have conversations which you may have already had with them on this issue. But I think allowing them to have some input on something that's going to happen in their jurisdiction before we decide to unilaterally say this is what we're going to do is probably a good idea. And so I would just make the recommendation that we start that dialogue with those two organizations. And I know you know how to get a hold of all of them and give them some input. And of course I sit on both, so I have an opportunity to also speak to that when I'm down there.
One other thing that I want to mention that one of the things the Virginia Capital Trail did well is whatever the signage is down in James City County, it's the same signage up here. I do believe that agreement should be very tight on what that signage looks like. I could see somebody going, oh, let's get a few sponsors and we'll put some sponsors on these signs, things like that. So that kind of the overlay district, you know, that throughout that all signage must be this way. And that's why it's important to get them on board because they can be thinking differently than we are. They're not in these discussions.
Chair, outside of the signs that we're trying to put on the Wayfinder plan, if the sections of the fall line fall in that jurisdiction and they're responsible for maintenance and upkeep in the future, and it's actually, if that's where it ends up, there's nothing that's going to preclude them from wanting to put something else on there anyway.
Oh, I'm just saying our
stuff
sign
needs to be,
meaning
oh yeah,
the fall line trail
Yep,
signs. Yeah,
yep.
I understand. Yeah,
I mean,
I have no problem with that either, because, you know, Virginia Capital Trails did not benefit from it being Virginia Capital Trail economically. I expect the fall line trail to be much different. I think that's an economic boom for that trail.
hope so.
Yeah,
Hope so.
you know,
Spend a lot of money, I hope so.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate the comments, and I wanted to make sure that it's clear that Colonial Heights and Petersburg have been involved from the outset in developing the wayfinding plan. So they have their full buy-in for all of the recommendations and the outcomes of the wayfinding plan, even down to the locations of the signs. So they are fully on board. I think my concern is making sure that we continue to use CVTA funding for what we're allowed to use it for, and making sure that there is a mechanism in place where we can help out Colonial Heights and Petersburg in getting that signage installed. So we'll continue to work on finding ways to do that.
Excellent. Any other discussion? All right, thank you very much. GRTC FY 24 certifications.
Yes, thank you very much. This is really an administrative item. There is action requested. If you recall, we have a certification process to essentially have our members provide surety that the use of CVTA local funds has been carried forth with the intent of the legislation, which is for transportation needs. Obviously, that is a broad spectrum of options for use of CVTA local. At the end of our fiscal year in June, we moved through that certification process where either the board president, the council chair, or the chief administrative officer provides a signed certification that local CVTA funds have been used for the purposes they've been identified for. GRTC has the same requirement, but their fiscal year does not end June 30th. So we are at this point getting their certifications for FY 24. This is the same process. It's a little bit different accounting. So you have a very detailed financial report in terms of their audit. The quarterly activity is included as well. And then the signed certification is the first page there on page 23. So this is would complete our certifications for FY 24 for all recipients of CVTA funding. And the action requested again is to recommend approval of the GRTC FY 24 certifications as presented. And this would go on the January 27th agenda for the full authority.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Parsons. Any questions regarding the certification for GRTC?
Save me the reading. What was the ruling on the audit? Unmodified?
Yes, yes, sir.
Again, people might watch.
Yes.
So it's probably important to say that their audit was very good. It was an unmodified opinion, which is the best you can get.
Yep. Thank you. You're up for that. All right, no other discussion. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second. All right, any further discussion?
Question, Eric. I chair the GRTC board, so do I need to vote or abstain?
You don't have any personal interest in that agency, so you can vote on it.
Okay, great.
Well, you've done a good job, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Let that be known.
Thank you.
All right. See no further discussion. This could be it. Which way? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Garrett, thank you. All right, do we have discussion about validation?
Yes.
All right.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Gilliland is here.
Oh, there she is. Sorry, there's a
from
plant there.
our bond counsel, and I really just wanted to give her a chance to give a quick update on where the process is in terms of getting all the paperwork together and an expected schedule.
Great, thank you. Welcome, Ms. Gilliland.
Good morning.
Morning.
Since I've last been before the committee, we've been working with CVTA's financial advisor on the financing structure and legal documents for the future bond issuance and upcoming bond validation. So we right now anticipate coming back to the committee early next year with those financing documents for your consideration. And then thereafter, we would be looking for approval by the committee and the full authority for those documents, as well as to initiate the validation proceedings. So we're on schedule.
No question. Okay. Any questions for Ms. Gilliland? Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. All right, next item is CVTA Finance Committee member comments. Anything that any of the members would like to bring up to the board in our last meeting of 2024? I can't believe it's going to be 2025.
Mr. Chair.
Sir.
I just want to echo the comments of the chair. I hope that everybody has a very safe and happy holiday season. Spend time with your family. Life's too short. Make sure you enjoy yourself. on behalf of Leanne and I, we wish everybody Merry Christmas.
Sure.
Mr. Chair. I just want to say thank you to this body. This is my last meeting at the CVTA. For those of you who didn't know, I did not run again this election, so I have a person who's replacing me on Richmond City Council, Sarah Abubakar. So she starts January 1. I wrap up at the end of this month. It's been great to sit in on these meetings on behalf of Mayor Stoney and just hear about the work that's been going on. And I'm so grateful that this body was created. And I think I've mentioned this before, but this money has been so important to the city of Richmond. We've been able to move ahead with so many projects that otherwise would still be in the queue. And I feel like it's the best secret that we have in the region. And people see it and appreciate it and are riding on the roads and, you know, walking on the sidewalks and all of that. But it's still like a quiet force. So I'm really grateful to have been at the table on and off for the last year, and just best of luck to everybody here. It just seems like things are headed in a very positive direction.
Great. Well, thank you for your service to both the CVTA and the city of Richmond.
Thank you.
You will be missed.
Thanks.
All right, any other comments?
No, Mr. Chair, I should have said this earlier, at the regional, the meeting we had the other day, for all of the groups. At the end of, there was a technical glitch when we tried to play the new promo video for the CVTA. We ended up playing at the end. But for anybody who's watching at home, there is a new video that the new chair has done. It's a great video. He does a great job in it. We're gonna have him in December come to our meeting, give a presentation. Chet's coming to on CVTA and play that video for our community. And I would just encourage members to share that out with their jurisdictions to try and do what our inaugural chair had always said was very important, which is to get the message of the CVTA out to the community. It was very nice to see Mr. Thornton at that meeting, and so that's it, Mr. Chair. I was just trying to make sure we all share that message of great stuff that the CVTA is doing.
Thanks, Mr. Stark. I'd say in Goochland, we have sort of on the same lines of getting the word out. We have an advertising campaign of gassing up in Goochland to encourage folks to maybe hold up a little bit until they get across the county line, and so we get that 7 cents per gallon. And I'll be interested to see if, as an advertising person myself, to see if our revenues go up a little bit. Although I doubt we'll be able to compete with Buc-ee's when it comes down the line.
Get what you can now, okay? You got Wawa there, so you know you got that going.
That's absolutely right. All right, anything else? Our next meeting will be meeting on February 12th. So hope everybody has a wonderful Christmas and a happy New Year. See you next year.